Hello, everyone. Hello. I'm now studying to be a tour guide to Israel, which is a very long and winding road, but very interesting. And every day I learn so many new things, even when I'm not actually studying, at school, or when I'm not on a study tour, which happens once a week, sometimes twice a week. I learn so many new things every day. And you know, on my telephone, in my notes, I have about hundreds of different notes on different topics. And one of those topics that I actually started before I even enrolled to my guides courses. um, Queen Ariel, sorry. I'm not planning to convert to Judaism, Ariel. So, and I was thinking, okay, so I started this long before I enrolled for my courses, and then one of the first topics that appeared there was actually Jewish women. And I believe this is the topic. Well, of course, I mean, the history of Judaism, the history of Israel, well, it's a big topic and well known, but not to everyone, obviously. But I think that the Jewish women, there are so many remarkable women throughout history, not only the 20th century, right, with those turmoils of the establishment of State of Israel and the two wars behind it and many, many wars afterwards. There are so many women, and many of those women are outshined by men. But please don't think that I'm not a feminist. I'm not against men. No, maybe that's because I came from I would say my background is I was even born in the sort of Soviet Union. Well, I was born in 1987, and the Soviet Union is the country that, well, women actually were pretty equal to men in most, walks of life, in no spheres of life. And I'm not talking about democracy. Nobody was free, but women were just equally non-free to men. Let's put it this way. So I'm not a feminist, but I just see this sort of inequality and how history has been quite unfair to many of the women. And so some of those women were outshined by men, of course, well, amazing figures that stood behind the establishment of State of Israel or establishing Zionist organizations and standing behind, those who actually inspired and ignited the Zionism, and the Aliyah movement. So Aliyah means immigration, right, to Israel. And some other women, they were outshined by some other women because well, let's say the impact of some women is way bigger and it's way more obvious than others. And I was thinking, okay, such women as, okay, Golda Meir, for example, okay, or a few others, they are a lot more popular all over the world. Everybody knows these women, but most of them are not that known. So I was thinking, okay, so maybe someday I could be sharing those stories. And I started, I think it started I think it was like in May last year. So 2 months after I immigrated to Israel, I would be constantly learning things, reading. And well, I was thinking, okay, so now I have the list of 40 women, and the list it's not finished. I mean, it's bottomless. If this is the topic that probably you can never really exhaust. Of course, that's not what I'm going to do. But now, okay, I was thinking, okay, so now it's the 8th of March, right? It was just a few days ago, and I was thinking, okay, so finally I can share the women's stories. Why not? And then it was the dilemma. Okay, so which women am I going to talk about and which women I'm not going to talk about? Why do I choose to talk about this one but not that one? That gave me a lot of that was pain, I should tell you. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to talk about. And then I was thinking, okay, How about I actually run not one tour, but the series of tours, actually four of them. And that's what I'm going to do. Too many to choose from, absolutely. So I'm going to run it's not just the Women's Day special tour, it's the Women's Month special mini series. They're going to be only 4 episodes, and I've already scheduled 4 of them. So we have tours, I think, on the 18th, on the 25th, and also on the 31st of March. You can all find them. Yeah, mini series. Yes, I decided to give it a go today, about 2 hours before this tour. Yeah, I didn't want to be unfair because history has already been quite unfair to these ladies. So, yeah. Yeah, Dorothy, there. Yeah, hi, dear. I saw you were the first one to join today. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about different women throughout different historical periods. And I should tell you that there is no really logic behind the order of the women I'm going to talk about. There is not even a particular historical period I want to be focused on at each and every episode. Maybe that's sort of the relevance to me. Well, shortly when I start with the tour, the first woman you're going to hear about, you will immediately understand why she's the first one. But I would say to me, they are equally important, remarkable. Obviously, the story is a bit biased because, well, it's my view, right? It's how I perceive the stories when I first learned them. That's it. Hi, Becky from Atlanta. So obviously this is, it's just the presentation, so the photographs and my stories. These photographs I found on Wikipedia and online on many sources. I actually registered in the Jewish National Library, which is a great resource. And as a future tour guide, I don't know, I think I could just live there. If I could, somehow take my mind when I sleep. So my body goes to sleep, but my mind is there, browsing the pages of the website of a Jewish National Library. That's where I would want to be. That's where I'd rather stay. But it is what it is. So before I switch the camera, let me go over the chat. I see that Queen Ariel's been asking some questions as well. So you asked me if I'm planning to convert to Judaism. No, I'm not planning to convert to Judaism. The reason is very simple. Is because I'm not a religious person. I'm more of an agnostic. And since I'm a linguist and I've always been interested and I've studied culture anthropology and culture studies, I see religion as a way of, also learning about the cultures, studying and getting the insights and reasons to many of the things that happened throughout history to this particular nation. So that's why, since I don't feel this need to convert to any other religion, I was raised Christian. I was baptized when I was, several days old. That's the tradition. So for me, I'm amazed. I'm in awe, just about Judaism, about the history, about some values, about some insight that now, as I also study it, that I get from it. But I believe that there is no religion that is worse or better. So to me, it's not the question of belief; it's the question of a bit of a science, a bit of just understanding culture and life. So that's what it is for me. So, but my husband is Jewish, and before I get down to the tour, there's a little promo that I think many of you might find interesting, but most of you, of course, already know. I would like to say that my husband is finally launching the project that I've been planning to launch for about 2 years now, the history of Jewish diaspora in the Russian Empire, starting from the Russian Empire, so the times long before the revolution, it's the 18th century, and even before that, and up until Soviet times, and then the modern day Russia. So obviously, I'm aware that Russia is not the country that most of you would want to hear about. So it's not about the country. It's about the history of Jews that at some point found themselves in the Russian Empire. How it happened, why at some point Russian Empire became the country with the biggest population of Jews in the world. So this is what my husband is going to tell you about. Tomorrow he starts his mini series as well, and every Sunday while I'm studying, he will be running these tours. He's been working hard on them for a few months, and his brain nearly explode. So please be kind to him. But I believe that he is the one who should run these tours. One more announcement, which is relevant to the topic. That's why I'm doing it now. Next Saturday, on the 18th of March, me and my wonderful colleague Olga from Odessa, you might know her on the platform as Odessa Walks. This is her project. We are running a collaboration. We are also going to be talking about Jews, in particular, three families, Brodsky, Trotsky, and Vysotsky, and how these Jews, we're going to make the connection between Odessa, the hometown of Olga, St. Petersburg, my hometown, and Israel, where I am. How these three families made their way from Odessa to St. Petersburg and then to Palestine, to Ottoman Palestine, and then how their heritage still lives in the modern state of Israel. So you see, it's bottomless. It's fascinating, and I can't wait to share all of this with you. So if it's what you're interested in, if it's your cup of tea, please make sure you book. And I am very excited about this collaboration. Olga and I, we've been trying to schedule it for about half a year. You know, we live in a very, very crazy schedule, but finally we're here. And well, since there are going to be four episodes of the Jewish Ladies series, so I felt I was at liberty to also announce these collaborations before the actual tour begins. Okay, so now I'm going to switch the camera, show you the beautiful artwork that I prepared for the tour, and also I will go through the questions because I see that there are some things I need to look through, and also thank you for very important comments. Clive, in Judaism, there are four women patriarchs. Of course, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, yes, of course, yes, the wives of the founding fathers of it, yes, that's right, of course. But I'm not going to talk about them. They're pretty much appreciated. We're going to be talking about slightly more recent times, slightly. And you see here, lipstick, pacey, flowers, and guns, right? That's because these are very typical attributes of Jewish women throughout many historical periods. And so that's the first woman I'm going to talk about. But obviously, I first need to talk about her husband to make sure everyone is aware. I assume that on this tour, I know that there are Jews on tour, Christians, and also people of other beliefs. Let's assume that this tour is for everyone, and I will have to explain some very basic things also about Israel, about the Jewish culture. So please let me do that. I just want it to be clear for everyone. So Eliezer ben Yehuda is definitely a crucial person, a very important character for, for the entire Jewish peoples, and in particular for Israel, of course, because Eliezer ben Yehuda, a linguist, and my colleague. So now you understand why I wanted to start with him. Now you understand it. It's pretty clear, right? So yes, this tour is, of course, it's biased. I'm sorry, but anyway, Eliezer ben Yehuda is the one who revived the Hebrew language, because for about, a bit less than 2,000 years, Hebrew was the written language, the language of the scripture, the language of the language of prayer, the sacred language. Why it happened? Well, Yeah, I've shared already because enough times I mentioned it, the destruction of the temples, and the second temple in Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD by the Romans, and Jews would be exiled, and then it would be completely over, and nearly the entire nation, the entire Jewish peoples would be exterminated after the Bar Kokhba revolt, the Jewish revolt against the Romans in 135 AD, and Common Era. Yeah, let's put it this way, Common Era. And well, after that, the Jews would have to flee, and they would spread all over the world. And this is also connected to how Jews would end up everywhere on the globe and would create their communities and diasporas, right? So this is pretty much thanks to the Romans. That's what's been happening and still happening and will be, I believe. And that's why the Hebrew language was, well, we nearly lost it. Of course, the Jewish practices would be kept in those diasporas, in those communities, but the Jewish communities would have to some sort of cooperate and well, somehow negotiate with the people of the country they would settle in. Finally, that's why in Jewish diasporas, different languages would emerge. Well, for example, Yiddish, right, in Eastern Europe, it's also the language of Jews in the Russian Empire, or Ladino, the Jewish, the Jewish Spanish, for example, and also different other kinds of variations of languages. But Hebrew, as it was the pure language, it only remained the language of the scripture. And Elza ben Yehuda, a linguist from the Russian Empire, he spoke Russian. He already at the age of 17, he saw a dream that the Hebrew language revived, and everybody, all the Jewish people would speak one and the same language. So can you imagine that one peoples couldn't understand each other unless they spoke about something connected to the Tanakh, right? So he had this dream. From the early age, he was interested in not only the, let's say, the religious literature, but also well, the world literature. He read a lot. And well, lucky for him, he found a woman who would understand him, who would have the same passion, and who would agree to emigrate from, well, from sort of, not exactly the comfort because of the pogroms, obviously, but still to immigrate into the unknown, to still the Ottoman Palestine. Up until 1917, the Ottoman Empire would be controlling the Holy Land, and they would settle in Jerusalem. And Elza ben Yehuda would work on, first of all, the let's say resuscitation, right? Revival of the language, compiling dictionaries. But it wasn't just that. This language was a dead language. Nobody spoke it, which means that unless nobody speaks it, there is no need for any dictionaries. And here comes the question: we need to turn it into a mother tongue. And of course, it started in the family of Elazar ben Yehuda. Hamda ben Yehuda gave birth to one son, and she would speak to him in Hebrew. And she would make sure it was the only language that the family would be using at home. But it was very difficult because there was, well, the language of the Hebrew was, okay, the most updated version of Hebrew was about 2,000 years ago, and the world has changed, the world had changed completely, right? So the question is, how would you use Hebrew for the words, for the things that didn't exist back then, right? Well, this is a fascinating topic to me. So, but please don't think that I'm talking about man. I'm talking about the wife of Ben Yehuda, right? About Hamda ben Yehuda. But still, I believe it's important to make these connections. So the new words would be invented, and the words would be put in the dictionary, and then they have to be learned. Hamda didn't speak Hebrew, but she After they immigrated to Palestine, in half a year, she started speaking it freely, using new words that would come to the mind of Ben Yehuda, Eliezer Ben Yehuda, her husband, every day in 6 months. Yes, and when their son was born, she would speak only in Hebrew with him, the language that she only learned half a year before that. Well, just for you to understand, well, those who speak Hebrew, I'm sorry, but I need to explain. So, for example, the word such as train, the word train didn't exist up until 1892 because the first train in Palestine was launched in 1892. And then there was no words for it, so they had to come up with the words. And she would be one of the advisors of Eliezer Ben Yehuda. So the word for train is rakevet. There was a word in Old Hebrew, rechev, which basically any means of transportation, and there was word gamelet, like a caravan of camels. And this is how, thanks to his wife, to Hamda ben Yehuda, the word rakevet emerged. She advised him. So it was like playing a Lego. Okay, take this brick. No, take the other brick. And this is how the new words will be blended. It's fascinating. And now we're using the word that she created. She made up. Amazing, right? So thank you, Hamda ben Yehuda. So what would happen afterwards? So what actually happened throughout this period? Okay, well, you speak Hebrew with a child. Okay, it's fine. And I'm showing you the photographs. So there are not too many photographs of Hamda ben Yehuda, more of Eliezer ben Yehuda, of course. But anyway, that's why we're doing this too, right? To talk more about the women's side of the story. Thank you so much for sharing your emotions. I believe it is important to talk about it. And then there was a question. So, but if the kid goes to a playground, to a school, there are other languages spoken. So then it means there's going to be a contamination of a language. It's highly likely that at some point a child would protest, against using Hebrew because nobody else speaks it. And there was I would say there was a little bit of Eliezer ben Yehuda was a little bit of a despot in this way. So their son Itamar, I will show you the photographs. He would, he wouldn't be allowed to interact with many children. Most of the time, he would be spending at home. There would be friends or family who would be coming and learning Hebrew, and they would be speaking together. So I'm not saying that their parenting methods were impeccable. I'm not talking about it, but we have to realize almost from scratch, the new language was born only thanks to these three people. And then, of course, thanks to their friends. And then, of course, the gymnasium Herzliya would be established in Tel Aviv, in future Tel Aviv, and in this gymnasium, the language of studies would be Hebrew. There were also there was also one more school for girls that had been established a bit before that, in very, very early 20th century in Neve Tzedek. I showed that school to you. So the idea was that women bringing up children would be using Hebrew, and it started with Hamda ben Yehuda, and then it would be passed on to other women, to the girls and other women, and this is how the language would revive. So was it just that thanks to Hamda ben Yehuda, a few words would be actually thousands of words would be invented, and it's just only one child that she raised, and then all of that is just the work of the community? Well, Eliezer ben Yehuda died, and she would live for a couple more dozen years, and she would finish up compiling the big Hebrew dictionary. I think there are like 7 or 8 books there. I haven't seen it, but I assume this is something, it was a groundbreaking thing. And she finished the work of her husband. She compiled the dictionary. Her son Itamar ben Avi, that's him. So you see, it's only Hebrew. poor, well, I don't know, like poor kid. He had probably very, very tough childhood, but he grew up into an amazing lexicographer. Yeah, he's very cute. He's still wearing a tarbush, by the way. So tarbush is the Turkish national headpiece because it was the Ottoman times. But yeah, so he's wearing a tarbush, but he's holding a scripture he's holding the piece of paper and it's Hebrew there. Amazing, isn't it? Hi Karen, I'm so happy to see you. So and well, exactly thanks to Hamza ben Yehuda, the dictionary was published. The Hebrew language would spread, and further on, it would become the official language of all educational institutions. But of course, further on, more institutions in the Ahuzat Bait, which was the first city built. Sorry, that's the next woman. The first name of Tel Aviv, which would be built as the first Jewish city in the Ottoman Palestine, right? So all the institutions in Ahuzat Bait would be using Hebrew, and this is the heritage of Hamda ben Yehuda. So, Hamda ben Yehuda. Let me show you. Yeah. So these are the years. So you see, she lived for almost 30 years after he died, and well, she even saw the establishment of State of Israel, because the Israel was established in 1948, and of course Hebrew would become the official language of the newly born country. But of course, so I believe her heritage, her impact on what State of Israel is now is a little bit underestimated, and probably it's less known than it should be known. That's my vision of it. That's my vision of it. But I believe that many can agree. But of course, it's important to mention that she never really worked. She stayed at home. She raised the kids. So she didn't fight for the establishment of State of Israel. She didn't spy, unlike Sarah Aronson against the Ottomans. Yeah, she didn't do anything of that. She never held a gun, I assume, in her hand. I'm not sure, but this is the impact, right? You can use whatever you can for the common cause, you can do. So, okay, the next woman, again, there is no really the list. There is no hierarchy. Which woman is more important, which is less important. Why the name is Ben Avi? I don't know. Why is this question, Mary? I don't know. Ben is actually son. Sarah Aronson. Okay, so the next woman to talk about, Sarah Aronson. Well, she is probably more known outside the Jewish world than Hamda ben Yehuda, because sometimes Sarah Aronson is compared to Mata Hari, which is weird and not really that relevant and that fair. But yes, she was a spy, and she lived in the Ottoman Palestine. Her family it was one of the very, very first aliyahs in the 80s of the 19th century. Her family came to a settlement called Zichron Yaakov. This is the settlement that was established thanks to the Rothschild family, the very rich Jewish family whose impact on the history of Israel is amazing and fantastic, and it's probably deserve another tour, which I'm definitely working on. And she lived in a big family, quite a well-off family, and she was always educated. She never really just stayed at home. She went to school. She studied just equal to her brothers. Yes, Ben is son. Yes, so I'm not sure what the question was about, but son of Avi. So yes, the son of Avi. Yeah, thank you so much for answering the questions that I just miss. Thank you, dear. Sarah was a spy. Yes, Sarah Aronson was a spy. So the story goes that her brothers, especially the elder brother, was a very famous specialist in agriculture, and she would spend much time in the fields assisting him, and also she became his secretary afterwards. It was still in the Ottoman times, right? So the Ottoman Empire that was still well, it was falling. The Ottoman power was falling apart, but it was of course clinging to power in every way possible. And Sarah would also travel to Constantinople, so modern day Istanbul, quite often. And once she was in Constantinople, and the genocide of Armenian people happened. I'm not sure what's going on in the chat, but I don't think it's relevant. Okay, Dolly, if Queen Errol has more questions, please help me answering because I might see it a bit later. I'm very sorry if I miss any of the questions though. And she saw the genocide, and it dawned on her that if the Ottomans all of a sudden decide to exterminate peoples of other faith because the Armenians are Christians, for no reason, just because they were different and because they no longer were considered of any worth for the Ottomans. Yes, she was very, very young. Indeed, we will talk about it. I will explain how she died. It's a terrible story, but well, it's a true story that the world needs to know. You can find quite many photographs of Sarah Aronson, a lot more than Ham does. And she realized that the same thing could happen to Jews. And she realized also that she needed to do something to prevent this from happening. And on her return, on her trip home to Zichron Yaakov from Constantinople, she actually saw the bloodshed. She saw people dying. She saw Armenians being killed. And this is a very sensitive topic because modern day Turkey, well, there's still issue if they acknowledge it or they don't. This is a different topic, but it happened. So the history, it's the fact that it happened. And she came to Palestine, and she returned, right? She returned to Zichron Yaakov, and she realized she needed to do something. Her family was, thanks to, well, because she immigrated at the very, very early years of the Zichron Yaakov and the first settlements sponsored by the Rothschild family. So they had connection. They had connections with the Rothschild. They had connections. So they could connect to someone in the upper echelons of power. And at that time, there was also the questions about the Suez Canal, about the split in the Suez Canal territories. And we know that France, we know that the British, they were also, well, they were looking for their interest in what was happening. And, well, the First World War started in 1913. And so there was still no war happening on the territory of Palestine, but the Ottomans supported Germany. So the Ottomans, that's why as they were drawn into the First World War, and they saw that at some point they were losing, they were getting weaker and weaker, and they were looking for ways to get stronger. And of course, the attitude towards the Jews in the Ottoman Palestine was getting worse and worse. And she thought she would collaborate with the British. She wanted to help the British come and fight against the Ottomans. That was her idea. So she established the, I don't want to go too much into history here. I want to focus on her, but I believe a little bit of the historic background is important here. And it was just a few years really before the British would come and Allenby would make his way to Jerusalem, but it would happen in 1917, and it was still not there. And her brother and a few more friends would establish an organization called Neely, This is her family, by the way. So mother, father, and the brothers, they were on very good terms. And her elder brother was also one of the members of the organization. And since Sarah Aronson helped Sarah Aronson, who is this lady? I'm sorry, I'm not getting it. Sarah Aronson is the woman we're talking about, so the spy. And this is her mother and her family. Yeah, this is Sarah Aronson. So, Deborah, I hope I answered the question. Hi, Barbara. I'm happy to see you. Oh, so Deborah, you joined probably a little bit late. So we're talking about remarkable Jewish women. We talked about Hamda ben Yehuda, the wife of the person who helped revive the Hebrew language. And this is the Sarah Aronson, who spied against the Ottomans to help British come and defeat the Ottomans. And the British also in 1917, the British government approved the Balfour Declaration, which meant that after the war is over, in case they win, defeat the Germans and the Ottomans, they would ensure the establishing of a Jewish state. Well, let's question whether this was the intention number one, because of course I told you the first intention was to get access to the Suez Canal that had been opened a few decades before that. And it was an important trade canal, of course, for the entire Europe as well. So that was the question. But since there was officially acknowledged that the Jewish state has a right to exist and the land would be given to Jews after the war, so Sarah Aronson would help the British to come and defeat the Ottomans. Since she spent much time in the fields with her brother, and by the way, her brother found the very old kind of wheat. And with the help of selection, he was the specialist number one in agriculture. He would help grow the new kind of wheat, and this would pretty much save half of Europe, not only Palestine. So she knew the fields, and she also knew the wells. She knew where the wells were. So you can imagine it's nearly desert. But the Druze people who were basically the nomads, the Druze and also the Bedouins, they had their wells. And the wells were key to success number one. The British didn't know where to find the wells, and the problem was it was still the period when they would ride horses. It was with horse cavalier, and the problem was if there is no water, the horses couldn't last long, and so which meant that definitely Ottomans were way better than the British in the given circumstances, in the given conditions. And so that was a big problem. But Sarah Aronson knew where the wells were, and she for several years she would be. Even before 1917, yes, but anyway, for several years, they will be passing on the secret information. There was a network of people, network of friends of Sarah Aronson that would pass on the secret information to the British. By the way, this is her husband, whom she never really loved much. There's a good book about Sarah Aronson, so you can imagine she was a passionate woman, and since she was a spy, she couldn't really focus on family. She didn't have children, and the husband, it was chosen for her. Well, they were in good terms, but of course, her love was her country. So, and yes, we know of several romantic stories. This is her and her brothers, by the way. And this is one of the friends. and well, probably a one of the sort of lovers at some point. There's a complicated story of the love story, but anyway, most people who worked for this network worked for free. They just worked for the same idea, to defeat the Ottomans, for the future state of Israel to be established, thanks to the British. Oh, Queen, thank you so much for sharing. I didn't know that. Amazing. Wow, that's a beautiful, beautiful journey and amazing exploration. Wow. So, and Avshalom Feinberg was one of them, but there were also people who passed on the information for money. And the British were paying in the British coins that were forbidden for use in the Ottomans, in the Ottoman Empire. There was an embargo. And the Ottomans at some point saw the coins that were not supposed to be seen there, the British coins, and well, they just put two and two together, and they realized it was Sarah Aronson. So that was quite a detective story, but they figured it out, and she would be questioned. She would be put on trial. She would be let go. You see that there was a release in 1916. So this is just one of the. It was just one of the incidents. She was nearly caught, but she wasn't. She wasn't really revealed. So she was released, but then finally, she was caught. She was questioned. She was tortured, and the Ottomans, well, were very good at torture, but when it got to women, they were a little bit less harsh. And well, she knew she would not be released. She knew that her secret was revealed, and there was no need to hope for anything. The British was still not there to release her. And she asked for the Ottoman convoy to, before she would be taken to a big trial, to go home, to change the dress, because it was all in blood. So she was beat a little bit. She was beaten a little bit, and they said, yes, okay, we can take you home. You change the dress before the formal trial. So she went home. She went to the restroom where she had a gun, and she shot herself. And she died from the shotgun wound a few days later at the age of 27. And the British would, and by the way, this is her letter, so the British would invade 2 months after. And a few months later, the General Allenby would invade Jerusalem and free it from the Ottomans. It's a horrible story, but this is the story how one woman, well, she started this idea. She started this organization, and she had the vision of it. So she sensed something similar could happen to the Jews that had happened to the Armenians. So she had a vision. She had the power. She had the strength and the wit and brains to create the network that dozens of people were working for this needle organization. Unfortunately, Avshalom Feinberg, her friend, maybe fiance at some point, he died a year before that. He was dangerous. People were shot every day. And she would be exchanging the messages to her family. Most of her family would leave from Zichron Yaakov. They would have to leave because of the war. And she would be sending letters to them. These letters, they are safe. They are in the archives of the National Jewish Library. That's one of the reasons why I'm spending so much time on their website. It's free, by the way, and it's very interesting. So I highly recommend to browse it if you have time. There are some interesting, eye-opening documents and photographs you can find. Okay, so the second woman, Henrietta Zold. I think she's really popular in Israel, and she's definitely one of the heroes of Zionism and also women in politics. Yes, but I believe she might be less known in the States, where actually she was from, and in the world. And you see the years, right? So those those were the stormy years for the world, and those were also pretty stormy years for Jews, because starting from like 1880s, there would be huge pogroms all over Europe and the Russian Empire against the Jews. In the States, it was this is exactly to where the Jews would immigrate flee from Europe, from the Russian Empire. Oh, Clive, you never heard of this women? Amazing, amazing. I'm happy that I can actually spread the word. So that's why I think, and you see, it's only the three ladies that probably I will have time to talk about. So that's why for those who joined a bit later, there are going to be three more episodes throughout March that I'll be talking about the outstanding Jewish women, but those women that you might not know about. Well, so Henrietta Zold. I want to show you another photograph. So you can find many photographs of Henrietta Zold. This is her in very, very, I would say, very young age. And Henrietta Zold was the one who, well, she first studied in the first schools in the States for Jewish ladies. She is the one who further on would help the immigrants to the States from Europe. She was the one who would help establish the first Zionist organizations. She is the one who would help women in Palestine. She is the one who would help children in Palestine, and not only Jewish, by the way. She is the one who further on would establish the first hospitals, and then she is the one who would establish one of the most fascinating, groundbreaking, and progressive hospitals in Israel called Hadassah. And Ruth, I believe you can see Hadassah from your balcony, from your amazing balcony. Oh, Seth, you grew up with a picture of Henrietta Zold on your wall. Amazing. Yes. Wow. Fantastic. So yeah, Hadassah is originally the organization of Jewish women. And further on, it would be passed on to the medical organization established in the British Palestine and in the mandatory Palestine, and further on in the state of Israel. Yes, exactly. World International Zionist Organization. I will talk about it. Yes, exactly. Amazing. So it's fantastic that Henrietta Zold is known. It's also nice that I can spread the word and share her story with those who are not very well aware. It's fantastic. So we're here to learn something new and also to share our own experiences. So I really feel it's really something special. And okay, there is one more photograph I would like to show. Okay. So you see, Henrietta Zold she grew up in a religious family. However, she also knew very well the scripture, and at some point she had to make a choice whether she would let's say devote her life to the religious aspects of Judaism, right, to the religious walk of life, or she would become a specialist in something more secular, but of course connected with Judaism, connected with Zionism, and that's the path she would choose. Oh, Rahel, you live I didn't know you live in Israel. Where in Israel do you live? Dolly, my elementary school was on the street named after her. Of course, absolutely. Hadrian, thank you so much for the tipping. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Yes, just like I told you, Henrietta Zold is well known in Israel and in the Jewish world in general, but well, I believe it's still not enough. Oh, Beit El. Oh, it's so great to have one more local on tour. Thank you so much, Rahel. Thank you for sharing. So, Henrietta Zold, educator, so the editor, the social worker, and the one of the founders of the first Zionist organizations in the world. Uh, I told you that she established the Hadassah organization. So the Hadassah, it was the organization that basically for the Jewish women of very, very young age. Sometimes those would be studying at schools, right? So they would be the first Jewish seminaries established in the second half of the 19th century in the States, especially with the huge flow of immigrants, of Jewish immigrants from Europe and from the Russian Empire. Thank you so much, Ruth. Thank you so much. And she would help those ladies. She would help them study, ensure so that they would have the studies, also just not only the religious studies, but to have all the subjects, secular subjects, everything. She would help them with the studies. She would be teaching them. She would also teach them religious subjects. She would ensure they would find a job. They would go to colleges, everything. So the Hadassah organization, it helped empower Jewish women, Jewish girls in the States. That was the first thing. So the Hadassah woman, the Hadassah organization. So that happened in the States. And under her direction, that organization became the most powerful Zionist group in the States. Then it helped arrange the fundraising for hospitals, for food banks, for nursing schools for Jewish women also. So it's not only the girls, but also the Jewish mothers, all the aspects of life of women, all the social works program, medical education, social service infrastructure. So you can imagine, I can relate very, very much. So you come to a new country, to an absolutely new world. You probably don't even speak the language, right? She also taught them English. You don't know anything about the social security, what to do with the children, where the hospitals are, nothing. You know nothing. So she helped those new immigrants to find their place, to start their life as smooth as possible. So absolutely fantastic. I can relate very much because I'm still I've been to Israel a bit less than a year, and I should tell you that there's still so much I need help with. So I really appreciate everything that Henrietta had done. Absolutely. Um, um, she was a family person, so she had sisters, and they also helped. But of course, she spent her days and nights with the Hadassah. And speaking of the Palestine, of course, her goal was to immigrate at some point, at least, to Palestine, and to finally to establish the state of Israel. So that's what Zionism is about: to return to Zion, right? To make Aliyah. So Aliyah means to go up, right? So to immigrate to the historic motherland. And of course, she would travel there. She would travel there with her sisters. She would travel with the Hadassah girls. But when she came, she saw poverty. She saw a huge mortality rate, very high mortality rate. She saw no infrastructure, and she realized that this is not the environment where she would want the Hadassah girls, her own sisters, her own children, to live in. That's why she would return to the States. She would help raise even more funds. And thanks to that, she would then return and establish a few, sort of small hospital stations in Haifa. Well, Haifa, at that time, Haifa was the biggest port built by the British. So it was also one of the first cities the immigrants would be coming, and they would need help just at once. So in Haifa, there was a hospital. Then the more hospitals, the small hospitals would be established all over the. Oh, sorry, somebody's drilling. I'm very sorry for the sound. I hope you can hear me well. A woman of vision who brought her latest into reality. Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, 2 minutes left and I'm almost done, so don't you worry. Just a few more things to talk about. One more photograph. So you see here Henrietta Zold going on our planet with kibbutz leaders. It's like 1940s. So she would be coming back and forth to Palestine, bringing more funds, bringing more specialists, hiring doctors, and paying the doctors. So with the funds raised. There's one more thing I would like to share, and then there will be some Q&A afterwards. And by the way, please don't forget to join the second tour I'm running today about the Catherine Palace. It's the last episode of the Catherine Palace tours about St. Petersburg. Okay. Also, you see the kibbutz leaders. So the kibbutz is the communities, the socialist communities that would establish the small settlements that would be they would be the agriculture, they would be the production of something. It was a socialist. So this is how the communities would exist. This is what would help the further on the newly established state of Israel. Well, at least with some supplies, so at least somehow to stand. At least, so the newly born country would need a lot more, but the kibbutz would be one of the ways to help the newly born state. And she was also there helping the kibbutz, establishing how the kibbutz could be working different social securities for the kibbutz members. She was there, and of course. Why? Also, one of the reasons why probably every Israeli knows Henrietta Zoll, because she was even on the banknote of Israel, well, old money, of course. Now we have poets and writers, but well, Henrietta Zoll was there. So this is the second woman that is connected with Henrietta Zoll, but we will talk about her in the other episode. Just a few more words about Henrietta Zoll. Now there is an exceptional Hadassah hospital that was established thanks to Henrietta Zold, and what you see behind Henrietta in the banknote is one of the buildings on the Hadassah hospital. Okay, so now Q&A. The tour itself is over, but I'm here to answer the questions, also to go through the comments. I see many of them. Yeah, Women's International Zionist Organization is, yes, 103 years old. Yes, exactly. We will talk about the Women's Zionist Organization in the second episode. Well, for example, there were several women who worked with Henrietta Zold, and this is when I will mention the Women's Zionist Organization. So with this connection. A woman of vision. Yes, exactly. Oh, yes, she was a serious force. Absolutely. Of course, Rahel, Zionism is also about finding purpose and vision of the land. Absolutely. So that's why being a Zionist, that doesn't just mean to return to the Holy Land, but also to develop it, right? And to find the purpose and to build everything together. Yes, absolutely. So this is what Zionism is about. This is what Henrietta Zold and other women were doing in the way they were able to do it. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing the link, live. Thank you. It starts in 1 hour. Yes, the second tour starts in 1 hour. Okay, Rahel, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but of course I will have your email and we'll get connected. Thank you so much. Bye, Queen Ariel. So I hope you found it interesting. Robin Ann, thank you so much. I'm happy you enjoyed the tour. Marianne, thank you. Yeah, the tremendous women, absolutely. Uh, thank you, KM. Thank you. Thank you, Joanne. So, if I missed any of the questions, please let me know. Many of the women that I'll be mentioning, they knew each other because they worked on the common cause. Because some of them, well, they lived in the same period. I would say they don't exclusively focus on the end of the 19th and the 20th century, but many women are of that period. That's because, well, because it's my choice. It is a biased tour. Okay. It is a very biased tour in a way. And many of these women, they knew each other, they collaborated, they cooperated, they created some big joint projects. And of course, I will be mentioning the Women's Zionist Organization in the second episode, and just the World Zionist Congress as well, and the establishment of State of Israel, and many, many other things. And I will be mentioning Holocaust, of course, and what women did to save people from the Holocaust. Many things. So there are many things to mention. That's why one tour is never enough. Actually, I now realize that it would have been a catastrophe if I just did one tour, and so only mentioning, and I would have mentioned only three women of, I would say, really hundreds. So that's the reason why we're gonna have more tours. Yes, Rahel, I am here only, for 1 year. And by the way, I'll be throwing an anniversary tour on the 25th of March. I'll be walking along the famous promenade in Tel Aviv and sharing my story. So for those who are not very well familiar with my journey to Israel and my journey in Israel, around Israel, well, I will be happy to share, answer personal questions. So this is a very, very personal tour, and it's already scheduled. Many more tours have been scheduled for March. Yiddish songs. My husband and I, on the 25th of March, we're gonna be on the 26th. There's gonna be the anniversary tour. I'm sorry, I confused the dates. And on the 25th, there's gonna be the singing tour. We're gonna be singing in Yiddish. So my husband is Jewish. He doesn't speak Yiddish, but his grandmother did, and he almost heard nothing. But there are stories to share, and we're itching to share and sing for you. Thank you so much for everything. I can't wait. Thank you, Rahel. Thank you so much. I'm excited to see you in 1 hour on my Catherine's Palace tour. For those who are still interested in tours about my hometown of St. Petersburg, for April, I've also scheduled 3 episodes of Alexander Palace tours. Alexander Palace is the home to the last Romanovs, to Nicholas II and his family. It's also the place from where they would leave to exile, to never come back. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you for the tipping. Thank you for spreading the word about this tour. Thank you for also following me on my socials. I'm Anna, full stop, your guide on Instagram. And I'll see you in 1 hour. Bye-bye. And of course, okay, I would like to wrap it up with my artwork. Thank you so much, everyone. But it's great to know that there's not only women on tour. Thank you. Thanks so much to all the gentlemen joining us. Thank you. Bye-bye. Ciao, Bella. Shavua Tov, everyone. Have a great week. Bye-bye.